Okay, now you're good.
Okay. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. I guess we can get started. Let's do a roll call. Councilmember Mark Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Harrington.
Here.
You're in the dark, Scott. Councilmember John Rafter. Are you on the moon?
I don't have the curtains up. I can't pull them. We're doing the painting in the room, so. Is this any better?
Hold on.
No, it isn't. Now I can see you.
Hold on just a second, guys. Sorry. I'm going to see if this works. Hold on. My wireless headphones. Can you guys hear me now or not?
Yes.
Okay, good. I got you. My iPhone was too close to my iPad, so kept jumping. All right. So to recognize that we have several items on our agenda tonight, I just asked the committee members if there's any objection to just moving forward, moving up to full council. Topic A, which is the New York State DOT Equitable Business Opportunities. It's a web-based application that needs to be completed. Is there any objections to that?
No.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none. I would also like to move up I, which is the surplus items. Is there any objection to moving that up?
No.
Recognizing that David Hoteling is here, he could answer any quick questions, but having read the narrative, he's completed 2 out of the 3. Was there any questions or concerns before moving that OPT contracts up to full council? Seeing and hearing none. David, real quick, the only concern I had with that is with regards to SUCO or SUNY Oneonta, are we going to be providing the service without having a contract in place? Is that your intent right now?
I guess that's the big question, David.
So are you looking for guidance from the council?
Well, let me jump in just for a second.
Yes, please.
The current,
David? Sorry.
yeah, David Merzick here.
Okay.
The current contract says that in the absence of a new contract, the former contract will continue. What my position is, and I think should also be the city's position, is there's this legal concept called force majeure, which says if there's an act of God or war or pestilence or earthquake or something that makes it totally impractical to fulfill the contract, that you can fulfill the contract to the extent that you can. Many contracts have a force majeure clause specifically written in it to discuss what happens. We don't have that in our bus contract, but it's a fundamental principle of contract law. And the midst of a pandemic is about as force majeure as you can get. So I think the city's position should be that we will continue to provide service to the extent that it's practical under the circumstances, which I think where we are right now is pretty practical. So my recommendation is that to the extent that the city deems it practical to move forward, consistent with what we have been discussing with the other, with the other other contractors, that we simply do that. And if there's a problem, or there's a perceived problem with that, we address it when the time comes in the way in whatever venue it becomes necessary to discuss it. Frankly, I would be very pleased to be in front of a judge and argue that the steps that, especially that the mayor has worked out and that David has worked out and that we've talked about around and around, are perfectly reasonable under the circumstances. So.
Okay, so you three gentlemen feel comfortable moving forward? David?
I certainly do from a legal standpoint. How David feels.
The only question that I guess I have that Ginny and I have been discussing back and forth is how we're going to move forward with acceptance of passes. Because if we're charging, they would pay a buck and a quarter ride, where we're only a 68-cent ride, is what we've always been in the contract with. So, that's where we're at, or 65, whatever it works out. But
okay.
What I'm getting at is we need to have a decision made because the 17th is coming quick on us.
Correct.
We start taking passes actually on the 15th, what we're supposed to do.
Well, to me, it sounds like the two Davids and Gary have put a lot of time and effort into this, and it sounds like you guys feel comfortable in the circumstances that we're in, and that you'll advise this committee and the council if we need to do something different.
Sounds good.
We'll hear from the Student Association. I would expect that we will hear from the Student Association. I'm surprised we haven't before. I just gave David today the Student Association President's phone number, so he can follow up. The Student Association President has my cell phone number. I imagine that, we'll hear from them.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so we'll move forward to full council topic A, topic I, topic G. Is there any committee member that has a concern or does not feel comfortable doing that right now? Mark, you're good with that?
Yes.
Scott and John, I hear you. Scott, are you good with it?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. Moving into topic B, the budget transfers. Does any of the committee members have questions for the finance director about the budget transfers? And it's in any particular order, just if you have any questions.
Hey, Len, I don't have any problem with the budget transfers.
Mm-hmm.
My only problem is getting it so late and trying to look at stuff. I think we need to start getting this a little bit early if we could, please.
Right. So I thought maybe, Scott, we could discuss that at the end of the meeting with the director of finance, maybe just as the committee and the director of finance. We could just maybe have that conversation at the end of our meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Mark, you look like you're still kind of digesting. You're good, or? I apologize. I didn't hear you.
No, I didn't speak. I was trying to find my unmute. I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen what you're all referring to. I've looked through my email and I cannot find it anywhere. So I don't know whether I was overlooked in the email or not.
Oh, no, you are. She's got two Mark Drennickson. Hold on. Let me forward it to you right now. Sorry. I will forward that to you right now. I just sent it out your way, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, so while you're receiving that, why don't we go right down through the budget transfers? The first one is we've expended, if I understand this correctly, $5,775. They're now asking for an additional $7,500 to cover the health officer's line item. I'm going to assume that there's no objection to that. If there is, and any of this stuff, please guys just speak up. The second line item And the budget transfers is regarding the part-time personnel in the code enforcement office. And they're requesting $12,000, and that's supposed to take us, if I understand this correctly, to the end of the year. Is that correct, Jenny? You're requesting 12 grand to get us through to the end of the year?
Yes, that's my estimate.
And the monies were available within code enforcement. You're just pulling them out of a different line item, correct?
Correct. We're just taking it out of the part-time payroll budget and putting it into purchase services.
Okay. The third item for the budget transfers regards the Department of Public Works. That one, I would ask Jenny to just kind of maybe explain that one. I got a little lost myself on that. I think it's about a individual that was promoted to supervisor, and I'm not quite sure what you're planning on doing for the transferring funds. Are you just covering that individual's salary? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, the DPW crew is based in the budget is based between the general water and sewer funds based on history of number of hours worked within each fund. When this particular person got promoted, most of his time now is being allocated to the water and sewer funds. So
Okay.
it's just a shifting of the monies between the funds, but because of different vacancies that we've had throughout the year, the general fund and the water fund are fine. It's just the sewer fund I need to fund the payroll expense lines for. It's just a reallocation of the monies between the different funds. So you're going to see a savings within the water and the sewer fund for this particular person, but in the sewer fund, I need to cover more of his salary because more of his salary is being charged there from our original estimate.
Okay. And so the last part shows the sewer contingency of $22,400.
Yes, that's where we're going to get the monies from.
Correct. I understand that. So how much will we have left in the contingency fund for the sewer?
Let me just take a look. We haven't touched the sewer contingency fund yet.
Probably more important than that, the balance is, do we have other items that are going to be coming before us through the remaining quarters of this year that you're going to need to tap into the sewer contingency line item?
I would say probably right now we've got almost 128,000. We haven't touched it yet this year. And depending on the potential savings that we have projected due to the possible shared items or saved items that we looked at earlier in the year because of COVID, we may not be coming back for anything. But it's just going to depend on how the wastewater treatment plant testing fees go and different type of expenditures like that. So I can't predict the future, but I can say that we have not touched the contingency to date. This is our first time we've done it.
Right. And so it should still leave a balance of approximately $106,000 after you do this.
Yes.
Okay. The next item in the budget transfers was for the wastewater treatment plant. They've expended their $7,500. Mark, did you get that email yet? Okay. And now they're requesting another $7,500. And looks like they're asking that will hold them over till the end of the year. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns so far, John, Scott, or Mark? No? Okay. The next one is what Katie and Ginny and Greg have advised us on. And I believe this is now just the shifting of the funds to cover the personnel. Is that correct, Katie and Ginny and Greg?
Yes, we're just shifting funds from the monies that we have available from the finance vacancy. We're just going to shift it to the two different part-time codes.
And so far, the individual that was moved from the personnel department part of the time down to the finance department, that's been working out. You're seeing the efficiencies that you thought you were going to?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, very good. And so are we still looking at hiring another accountant?
I guess I can take this one. I think that, so the council had given us a 3-month review period to attempt the arrangement with Dave Corey, the personnel assistant. So we're trying really hard to evaluate over that 3-month period, and that will give us until the end of September. So we don't yet have a recommendation for you as to whether or not we actually need to fill that additional full-time spot. But what we would like to do, just at a cost savings, is to continue to proceed with Dave picking up more of the retirement payroll tasks and then supplementing the work in both offices with, much cheaper part-time personnel expenses. So right now we're continuing to advertise for it, the accountant position, just to take applications to see what's out there. But I would say at this point, we don't have any immediate plans to request to fill that vacancy.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns from committee members regarding the budget transfers? Hearing none, we'll move topic B to full council. Katie, if you would just stay online and continue explaining the maintenance worker appointment, which is topic C, topic D, topic E, topic F.
I like to batch things up, which is why I put everybody together, based on topic on the agenda. So topic, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but the maintenance worker vacancy, I would like to withdraw that request. Greg and I were negotiating with the candidate. Those negotiations were not successful, so we are not seeking to fill that position at this time. We're going to go back and continue to advertise.
Right,
the next
so topic
one,
C is off.
Topic C is off, yes. Topic D is a full-time civilian dispatcher in the police department. Right now we have 2 full-time vacancies and 2 part-time vacancies, so they're definitely in need of assistance. We have a very good candidate, someone who is all trained. She was a part-timer, left and is now coming back. Her name is Carolina Stipolkowski, and so with your permission, we would like to put her on the agenda to appoint to a full-time spot next week.
So real quick, and Katie, you can answer this. That'd be great. If Dave Merzga has to, that's fine also. But I was under the impression that when we are addressing the personnel of the city of Oneonta, we're not to mention their names. And I just want to make sure that we're staying in compliance.
All right, well, I guess Dave can answer.
Well, it's not that you can't discuss anything about personnel. You can't discuss anything that relates to, if it's a competition or anything that relates to disciplinary proceedings or anything of that nature. If it's something that you're simply moving forward on, then, I mean, you don't have to say we want to hire candidate X or anything like that. Is that answering your question?
I guess I don't want to get in trouble if we're giving out personnel's names here on Zoom and we're not supposed to.
I would say that for retirement system, civil service, and auditing perspectives, you need to have a motion with a specific name appointing the person to the position.
Okay.
I mean, of course, that's something we can change if that's not something that.
No, I just want to make sure that we were staying in compliance. That's all.
No, we're good so far.
Okay, thank you, David.
I'll start flailing my arms if it's not.
I don't have you up on my screen, so you could flail all you want. How's that?
I'll unmute and make myself known. How's that?
There you go. That would definitely help. All right. So Katie, I guess we're going on to E.
These are the 2 part-time clerk appointments to supplement in the finance office and the personnel office. Right. As we had discussed. So one, we're just wanting to let you know that we're going to be hiring her. We'll be hiring her at a rate of $13.80. It's already adopted under the part-time wage scale. The second candidate is phenomenally well qualified. And so Ginny and I felt that recommending to you a part-time salary of $15 an hour was a fair rate for what we're getting from the second candidate. And that is outside of our adopted part-time wage scale. So that would need to be a specific motion authorizing that salary if you agree.
Is there any committee member that has a concern of not taking this to full council? John, you're good with us?
Yes.
Scott, Mark?
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Same.
Very good. Okay, I guess we're on to topic F, the firefighter residency.
All right, now this is one where I will not mention a specific name because it deals with personal protected information. So we have a firefighter who was recently hired, and it's established in the city code that certain positions there are residency requirements for certain positions, including a firefighter. So this firefighter that we had hired recently had 6 months to relocate to meet the residency requirement, which is either in the city, in the fire district, or within 5 miles of the flagpole of the fire department. That individual would be coming up on the 6-month mark at the end of this month, and for pandemic related reasons has requested a 2-month extension to that, which would require a motion from the council. I'd invited the chief to participate because I don't believe he agreed with the request, or he wanted to meet in the middle and offer 30 days. So I guess I would just, Pat, if you're there and want to speak up.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I would make a recommendation to the Finance Committee to go to full council with a 30-day extension for this. One of my main reasons to that is that we need to have him available for callback as soon as possible.
And so, Chief, did you feel that the reasons for the pandemic, that's the reason why you're asking for 1 month instead of 2, that you're just kind of questioning that?
Yeah, there was a 2-month absence from the academy for this new firefighter, where they had a 2-month delay, and I believe that's where he had come up with the 2 months. My feeling is to meet him in the middle, where we want to give him some extra time, perhaps, but during that 2 months, if he could have certainly been looking for residency here. So that's why I want to work with him to some extent, but also feel fair that because of the starting to be an increase in calls and the increase in callback, that I would like to get him here so that he is available, because he is from out of the area and living out of the area currently, and has been for the last 6 months, and would like to get him moved here so that he would be available for callback.
Okay. Is there any committee member that has an objection to the chief's recommendation of a 1-month extension to the firefighter residency?
Can I ask a couple of questions, Lynn? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Does this firefighter have a family that he's trying to move to, Chief, or is it just him? Do you know?
Can't answer those questions. I'm sorry. Anything related to familial status, we couldn't answer. I'm sorry, Scott. I think it's a legitimate question, but it's something that we really couldn't answer.
Well, then I don't think I can really sit there and say one way or the other between 30 and 60 days. I mean, that's a lot to think about if you're moving a wife and 2 young kids, or you're just moving yourself.
John or Mark? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a question for the chief or for Dave Merzig, but what happens in the event that this firefighter does not secure residency within that 30-day period?
Then he wouldn't be hired. It's an employment requirement.
Okay, thank you.
John, do you have any questions or concerns?
Just a question of risk of losing the person, and whether it puts him on a brink where he says, no, I'm just going to, that he's completed the training on our dime.
He has, but just if it will help your concern, John, we have negotiated with the fire union a provision in the contract where if a person leaves within a certain period of time upon graduating the academy, then they are required, contractually obligated, to repay us 50% of their gross annual salary at the time of separation. So we negotiated that into the contract recently as a means to protect the city's investment for situations like this, or for people who wanted to come in and use the city as a training ground and then move on to a different department. So we would more than recover our costs. I mean, granted, it's not what we want. We certainly don't want to part ways with this individual, but we are somewhat covered financially should it come to that.
Further
Katie,
discussion?
Katie, are you involved with this discussion with him in terms of a negotiation, his willingness to come versus a strong statement that he needs the 60 days?
No, I have not been. It was referred to me by the department. So I've spoken with the individual's chief, or I'm sorry, the individual's captain, but no, I haven't spoken with him other than, just generally discussing the requirement with him at the time of orientation, which was of course in February. So that was prior to, the pandemic and the resultant change in schedule for the academy.
So just to be clear, John raised the point, this individual has completed the fire academy and this individual is ready to go to full-time work with us. She's just asking to have a 2-month delay in the residency requirement. Is that correct?
Would he
to
be?
date, has this individual missed any of their shift work because of the residency issue?
Chief, that's a question for you. I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of. He is working his normal shift work. I do not believe he's been available or has come back for any callbacks.
And so he is working, he's performing satisfactorily and is asking for the 60 days versus the 30. What do we gain by putting him on a brink? Because we would terminate him in 30 days if he didn't physically move.
Well,
I believe that's a question for David or Katie.
I mean, I would hope it wouldn't come to that. I mean, it seems to me like the individual does not have an unwillingness to relocate, has just cited the delay in the academy and challenges with the housing market, which has contributed to his inability to relocate here. So I think that, depending on what you decide to do here tonight, I mean, the chief and I would go back to the firefighter and have a very serious conversation about what the impact would be of not relocating within the required time frame. And he signed an acknowledgement at the time of his hire, so he's aware of it. But yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to part ways with this person. I mean, we make an investment, and despite the fact I'm telling you we would recover 50% of his salary, I mean, that's still the better part of a year that would have been invested in someone that's now wasted. So I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if, in my opinion, as the personnel director, I would like to see us make every effort to work with this individual while also still, holding him to the requirements as established by the city code.
I would agree with that.
Could you clarify, Katie, what you meant by work with the individual?
I would like to work with the individual. I would like to, I mean, truthfully, I would like to see us approve his request. I completely understand that I'm sensitive to the chief's point about, call back in 30 days. I don't know if, I mean, it's Pat's department. I mean, if he feels that 30 days is a fair time frame, then I think that we should offer the 30 days. Again, we are dealing in unusual times with unusual circumstances. So I do think a little flexibility, obviously if I have a follow-up conversation with the firefighter and he says, yeah, no way am I moving to Oneonta, then I think it will obviously change the conversation. If he says, yeah, I've been trying and it was difficult, or I couldn't, or whatever, then I think that warrants flexibility.
What if we did like 30 days, but we could grant up to a one-time extension of another 30 days if needed? Tell them we prefer to 30 days, but if we still having problems finding, then we could just do one more 30-day. That'd be kind of, putting it on them. We really want you in 30 days, but we understand everything that's going on. I don't know if that's a possibility, just trying to throw something out there.
I don't know. I don't think we really want to take a chance of losing this investment that we have. This is supposed to be a long-term investment for 30 days. So to me, I see no issue with granting this individual a 60-day extension to the residency, given all the circumstances. And I think Katie can attest to housing issues in the city of Oneonta. So for me, I don't have an issue of raising this to full council and granting the 60-day extension. I guess we're to a point where you guys have to speak up and say you wanna move it or not.
Well, just on clarification on Scott's point, I mean, it's trying to find a middle ground between the 60 and the 30. Is that a possibility that we grant 30 and have a negotiate 60 if need be?
I don't know what other, call it teeth, they have between the personnel department and the fire chief on making sure that this individual is living within 5 miles from the flagpole, within the fire district, or within, the city or town. So I believe the only thing they have is you lose your job. So at this point, the personnel director is recommending a 60-day extension to the residency requirement. And for me, I don't want a chance. We've already paid for this individual to go to the academy full-time. They're saying that this individual is ready to go full-time to work over 30 days, and especially for an individual that's made all their shifts.
If I could just jump in, he's correct. If you can't meet your conditions of employment, it's either you're employed or you're not. There's no real in between, like no discipline. It's just, residency is a condition of employment, just like graduating successfully the fire academy or the physical agility or whatever. So I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Just if we're getting the benefit of his work, and he's just making these days, is just ask about getting a 60-day extension versus a 30 or doing it right now. I'm inclined to support the 60.
Scott and Mark, are you on the fence or?
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I understand 60 days, wanting to keep this individual. I also understand that the need to be able to get him active for callbacks. So I feel like this is a kind of tough place. On one hand, I don't want to lose him, but on the other hand, I think we're going to be ramping up calls with students in the city. I think we need to have full personnel there, but I don't want to lose this fella either.
Right.
Again, that's where I think the 30 days, and if we have to give it a one-time extension to 60, I don't see that as being a problem. I mean, you're kind of putting it like, look, we're trying to work with you, but we really need you. And, but we understand if you still run into another problem, you can have the extra 30 days. So it's not like we're trying to hamper him in any way, but we're also trying to get the message that we really need you. This is what we brought you on for. We understand circumstances are circumstances.
Right. But in this particular case, Scott, I don't understand, and just clarify, I just don't see where we gain anything by going back to the individual saying, okay, we're going to give you 30, but at the end of 30, you come back to us, we're going to give you another 30. I would rather just throw the 60 down and say, if you're not here in 60 days, then we are going to part ways with you. And I'm sure the chief's going to see this individual has moved probably within 30 to 45 days.
But I'm also trying to honor a request that's coming from, one of our department heads that really has a need for an individual too.
Right.
And then where does it stop? I mean, what do we do with the next case, and then the next case, and then the next case?
Well, I think this gives an opportunity for the fire chief and the personnel director to look at the future, saying, okay, this is what we're going to do if we run into this residency issue again. I think this is probably the first time that this has happened, or not. Either way, it still gives them an opportunity to correct this issue. Katie, is that assessment correct, or?
No, you're correct. I mean, this has come up in the past, but it's never been, the individual resides, I don't know if this will help with your decision. I mean, he resides about an hour from Oneonta. So typically in the past, when the council has granted waivers, it's been if you're 5 minutes outside or, a couple miles. So this is definitely a very different sort of situation. However, I very much see this being an issue coming up, given that we're now hiring off of an established civil service list with people from all over the region who took the test. So it stands to reason that what you do now, will affect future decisions for sure. I will say I completely understand the chief's point. I don't disagree with him. I will say though that even if the individual were to relocate within 30 days, we have trouble having existing staff respond to callback. Now, there's no contractual requirement that people come in regardless of where they live. So even if we give 30 or 60 days, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you another body here. I just think it's important to make that distinction. Again, not disagreeing with the fire chief, because I know that there are staffing concerns. You see the overtime numbers, you know that we need people in that department.
But in this particular case, I completely agree with you. But in this particular case, we are talking about overtime. So the callback generates overtime. So just to be clear about that. So I think this just gives an opportunity for these two department heads to sit down and come up with a plan for the next time, because I'm sure there's going to be another time that we deal with personnel that cannot move into the city quick enough or into our district quick enough. Okay, so I guess we're down to Scott and Mark. It looks like John and I are willing to move this up to full council with a personnel director's recommendation of 60 days. What do you guys want to do?
I already said what I want to do, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of of the same mind. I don't know if this is the right thing, but I would like to have maybe this discussion should be a full council discussion, because we're trying to honor the request of the department head. At the same time, we're not trying to lose an employee. So I feel like maybe more minds thinking about this might help us to figure out what's best.
Okay, so Scott, are you good with moving this up to full council?
Yeah.
Okay. So topic F is moved up to full council. I'm sorry, Katie.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carson. I just wanted to mention that this individual's 6 months expires on the 21st of August. So we have to come to some sort of agreement at this next council meeting, whether it's 30 days, whether it's 60 days, whether it's nothing, just because the 6 months does expire. So it's important to mention that time frame.
And maybe this time period between now and the next council meeting will impede the firefighter on maybe my job will be lost and maybe I should move quicker to get in. All right, I don't want to skip over something. I think we're down to topic H, if I'm correct. Mark, that's regarding the 2020 street projects. If Jenny and Greg, you guys would give an explanation of where you're headed with this, that would be helpful.
Or you want me to go, Jenny? So we have various projects each year, obviously. Anything from pavement maintenance tasks such as chip sealing, fiber mat, and other different types of processes where you're sealing the surface of the road, crack sealing, that sort of thing. And then we have a little bit more involved processes like milling and paving, those sorts of things. And so each year we set up a capital project budget for the capital improvement type things, anything more than the maintenance. So maintenance tasks, like I said, the crack sealing, patching, chip sealing, that sort of thing comes out of an operational budget. We set up a budget each year in the budget process, and then we set up a capital project for anything bigger than that. Some of that funding comes from the city's general fund, and then some of that comes from what we get in state aid through the CHIPS program, Consolidated Highway Improvement Program. And there are some add-ons to the CHIPS program. There's one called Extreme Winter Recovery that's been around for a few years now. And every year it has been getting refunded. And there's also a Pave NY program. So together, that pool of money is state funding that we can use for certain pavement rehabilitation purposes. You can do anything that's really going to extend the life of the pavement. There might be things such as installing curbs, which helps with drainage, or closed drainage systems, stormwater catch basins replacement, that sort of thing, that can be reimbursed using those state funds. This year, the state, given its financial situation, has indicated to municipalities that CHIPS funding and Pave NY and Extreme Winter Recovery may be reduced by up to 20%, and they have not made that decision yet. So in calculating what streets we want to do this year, what they're going to cost, and how much we plan to spend, we factor that in, assuming we would lose that 20%. That's not a definite yet, but the numbers that are in Ginny's breakdown figure that we are going to lose that 20% to be on the safe side. We don't. So essentially, this would be a motion on the council agenda if you approve it tonight to go forward and establish a project budget for street repaving this year. And we did include a map showing some color coded what type of processes we'll be using on which streets. May have seen some vehicles out there now recently today and last week. We're doing fiber matting. That's a pavement maintenance process, not part of the budget we're looking to set up, but related. You'll be seeing some more milling and paving going on. Standard stuff, all part of pavement management. So if there are any questions, I can.
Well, first off, Greg, I just wanted to thank you and Ginny for providing the background information, the graphics and the list. I truly appreciate that. Plus, I enjoy the fact that you guys have both recognized that there might be a 20% reduction from the state aid, and your budget is still, your request is still less by $40,000 than the amount of money that you have between the general fund and the state aid. So I appreciate you guys being very conservative in your approach to this. And for me, I have no issue with moving this up to full council, because the streets and sidewalks are going to be the first thing that the constituents call and complain about. So, is there any other
issue?
Yeah, is there any other committee member that would like to upset their constituents and saying no to spending money on streets? And come on, Scott, you got that look like you want to.
I don't want to know. I just going through the list of streets.
Yeah. Again, I appreciated the graphics. Thank you.
I did too. That helped out a lot to actually see them in front of you, instead of trying to remember in your mind where every street is. So I appreciate that.
So is there any committee member that has concerns or issue of not moving us up to full council?
No.
Okay. We will now move forward onto topic J. I believe, Greg, you're still up with the athletic court resurfacing.
Thanks. So the 2020 budget included $80,000 for Wilbur Park tennis courts resurfacing and $50,000 for a Renewal Park pickleball court resurfacing and lighting upgrade, which we've determined the lighting upgrade is not necessary at this time. But so those projects were not repaving asphalt. They're just redoing the surface, seal the cracks, and put down a new surface for athletic purposes. In working with Lou Lansing and the Parks and Rec Commission, they've noticed a trend, Lou especially, that pickleball is a up and coming sport in this state, in this area, and the country in general. There's a lot of people playing in our parks. There's some shadow pickleball lines that are painted on the tennis courts now in Wilbur Park, and they use those frequently throughout the summer months and spring and fall too. And in keeping or trying to encourage that trend, and also the similar trend that tennis isn't quite as popular as it used to be. We don't see a lot of tennis being played on our multiple courts. We have 8 courts in Wilbur, 2 tennis courts in Newa. So what we've recommended is converting the 2 tennis courts in Newa to 8 pickleball courts. Pickleball courts are smaller. And in looking at how to design that and build that most efficiently, fitting 8 courts is maximizing the use of that space. However, they're close enough together that it would be problematic if you have a lot of people playing next to each other at once if you didn't have a fence, a short, like 3 or 4 foot fence between each court to keep the balls from bouncing astray and being a potential tripping hazard or just disrupting play. So, looking at some designs I've seen elsewhere, that's what we're recommending, is putting a small fence between each of the courts there. And that was a little bit of an added cost from what I originally estimated. Original estimates were just looking at resurfacing. And then in Wilbur, we would resurface all of those tennis courts and then convert one of the tennis courts to a basketball court. That was a suggestion from Lou and the Parks and Rec Commission, again, based on usage and the fact that tennis isn't quite as popular, and I think they see a need for, probably more usage for a basketball court there. So we did include that as well. It's painting the lines a little bit differently and installing 2 hoops where there aren't any now. So overall, the estimate, where is that?
214.
Jenny, help me out here. Am I missing
It's
it?
214,000, Greg.
Greg, the estimate for the project is 145.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, 145,000. So the numbers we see here, the 80,000, the 50,000, these are listing out the appropriations that were included in the 2020 budget to be taken from the Parks and Recreation Reserve Fund. So you see the Cattell Dog Park, 58,000, the Newell Park basketball lighting upgrade, 12,000, and the Wilbur Park zero turn mower, 14,000. The 2 asterisks, the dog park and the basketball lighting upgrade in Niwa, are not going to be done this year. We had previously discussed taking some of those funds and using them for the Damaski Field infield improvements. That was approved by the council a few meetings ago, and we were thinking about revisiting the dog park as part of the 2020 budget or 2021 budget discussion. And then the Newell Park basketball lighting upgrade, that's actually included in our street light upgrade project. So that costs, there will be no separate cost for that. So that can be considered as savings, or as we're recommending here, transferring some of that to cover the difference. So 80 plus 50, 130. We're going to need an additional $15,000, we think, to be transferred. Jenny, did I get that all right?
Yes, you did.
So essentially, because this is using funds from a Park and Recreation Reserve Fund, we need to have the council give a specific, pass a specific motion to authorize that, even though it was mostly included in the 2020 budget.
So I open this up to the committee members for discussion. Go ahead, Mark.
So Greg, thanks for the explanation. What's the status of the courts right now? I mean, what's the timeline? How much could we wait another year to resurface, I guess, is the very simple question. Where are we at with that?
We could. I wouldn't recommend that, and I'm recommending we go forward with it now, because another year will inevitably the cracks will extend. You'll have more crack filling to do, so that will drive the cost up some. There might be cost increases otherwise, just with inflation, that sort of thing. But I think being able to do it now, also we'll have a window. I don't believe Hartwick, who normally plays their matches there, has requested use of those courts yet. So it's a good time to be able to do it if we could do it in September. That's not the biggest issue. We could certainly find a window to do it next year, but I would just say that the court is going to further deteriorate, and it'll ultimately result in a little bit more cost to do it a year from now or longer.
Thanks.
Scott?
So we're looking more at resurfacing the courts. That's what you want to do this year, Greg?
Yeah, resurfacing the courts, both in Niwa and Wilbur, and also in Niwa, we'd install the short fences between the new pickleball courts. And in Wilbur, we would install a fence between the basketball court and the existing tennis courts.
Greg, to Mark's point, is there any way that maybe we could wait a year on the Wilbur Park zero turn mower?
I believe that's already been been purchased. So no, unfortunately.
Okay.
I was researching what pickleball was, Greg. I had no idea what it was. So
It's kind of like a cross between racquetball and tennis. Or I don't know. My dad plays it all the time. Apparently he.
There's actually quite a few people that do pickleball, and it falls in line with what we all have to do right now is be socially distant. So, what do you guys think?
So the things that are going to be left out is the dog park will be revisited in 2021, and then the basketball upgrade lighting will be revisited in 21, right? Is that how I take this?
The basketball lighting actually won't need to be budgeted again next year, or should be ever, because that'll be replaced as part of that street light upgrading project.
Okay.
Lights in Renewal Park, most of them are actually on our inventory of street lights, so they'll be upgraded as part of that project. But yes, the dog park would be something that certainly the Parks and Rec Commission has that as a high priority. I think there's been a lot of people in the community that would like to see that, so that's something that should be considered.
And you're just pulling the funds out of the Park and Recreation Reserve, correct?
Yes. For
Yes,
the ball tennis project, yes.
And what percentage or amount will be left in the Parks and Recreation Reserve after this?
let me email you on that. I want to refresh my memory on those numbers. I'm sorry, I don't have them in front of me right at the moment, Len.
Okay. Meaning we're not depleting it, or so I'm sure there's projects that are going to be asked for in 21 and 22.
Let me take a quick look.
I would just say from a prioritization standpoint, I would prioritize this highly because it's an existing asset. It's getting use. I think we're going to get more use out of it by altering it to be different pickleball and basketball as well as tennis. And I certainly advocate, fixing up and keeping something nice that we already have before any other projects, such as whatever might come up that we might want to do with the reserve fund. And we don't have very many $145,000 parks projects for maintenance purposes that come up. So I think it seems to be an appropriate use from my perspective as far as priorities in the park.
Right. I agree. I enjoy the fact that people are utilizing our parks more. I've been driving through and stopping, and I use the parks myself, and it seems like we have a uptick in park usage. I'm sure our parks director can confirm that, but I don't know. Mark,
Greg,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I cut you off, Len. Approximately how long would this resurfacing last? And I recognize there's a lot of different factors that would impact that, but what's the typical lifespan on new resurfaced courts like this?
I think around 15 years, 10 to 15 years before they have to be completely resurfaced like this is my recollection from the manufacturer. I can't tell you the last time these courts were resurfaced. I'd have to research.
Greg, do you see anything else having to be done at the baseball field?
Other than the, $30,000 infield improvements that we talked about earlier and approved earlier this summer, there shouldn't be any immediate needs there. We've talked about a phase 2 renovations, which would be, some more major improvements that would make it a lot nicer park. And that's something I'm sure we'll talk about in the capital plan process. But that's not something I would see happening in 2021 or happening really without some outside funding of some sort. No immediate needs.
Thank you.
While I'm a little concerned about, just dollars, right? We've certainly got this very real pandemic and it's impacting the bottom line. I can attest to how much usage these courts get on a, starting really early in the morning and going, into the evening. So I would support it.
Thank you, Mark. Scott, you said you're good.
Yes, I would support it as well.
John, how are you?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Len,
Greg, we'll move that item up to full council.
Len,
I'm sorry, Jenny. What?
I have the estimated balance for 2020. It's going to, if we use the funds, it's going to be approximately 140,000 left in the reserve for 2021.
Thank you. Why don't we skip over item K and go to item L? Is that in the narrative? And I'm just missing it.
No, on item L, I did not speak of in the narrative. This
No,
is
I can explain that. Sorry about that. I meant to send something out on that, and I did not. This is a routine renewal of a contract with the New York State Court for the use of the city court in the public safety building. It really isn't far out of line from what it is every year. I believe there's a 5-year agreement, and then it's a provision to be renewed every year. 5-year agreement, is that right, Jenny?
Yes, that's correct. It's a 5-year.
This is for the state fiscal year 2020, 2021.
Right. And so we're mandated to have this contract, and the contract represents the same figure that we had in 2019 and 2020? Or
No.
did they increase?
Len, the figures based on estimated costs for the upcoming year. They work closely with John Williams as far as what's going to be done for the court. For example, last year, the contract was almost $60,000 because they did some repairs to the court window. This year, it's only going to be around, I want to say $30,000 because they don't have those large repairs. So it changes from year to year depending on the activity that happens. But if we've got the expenditure, then we've got the state aid to offset it. If something comes up during the year, we can go back to the court and ask for a budget amendment, and they're usually pretty agreeable to it because it's usually some type of work that they want to have done.
Okay.
Yeah, there are predetermined percentages of reimbursement for certain city tasks, maintenance, cleaning, that sort of thing. They reimburse a certain percentage. I think it's 25%.
Jenny, Greg, to send that information on to not only the committee members, but the full council so that we're all informed.
Will do.
Is there a committee member that you want to share a concern? Or so we'll move item L up to full council, and you guys will send us the information. I believe this is where Mayor Herzig will take over and talk to us about the Bombers Burrito mortgage. And I believe that is the H3 proposal to the city file that was sent to us Friday night.
I'll give a little background, and then I'll let David Merzig take over, answer all the questions, and give all the details to this. I was contacted by the finance organization that holds the mortgage on the Bombers Burritos building. They had made a sizable loan in the neighborhood of $1 million to John Hewitt and I think a member of his family to purchase and renovate the building. They have since declared bankruptcy, and this company, I think the name is Pursuit, is looking to recoup as much of their loss as is possible. They've done an appraisal on the building, and it seems to be the appraisal shows its value at less than half of the amount of money they're owed. The city has 2 mortgages on this property. One is for somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000, $350,000 maybe, which is not money that we laid out. This mortgage was placed to protect us in the event that John Hewitt did not meet the terms of his grant, and in the unlikely event that the state came after the city to pay back the grant, we held this mortgage against John Hewitt to protect ourselves. We have been notified. Judy has spoken with HCR, and they're the ones that the agency that provided the CDBG grant. They have said that John Hewitt has met all the terms of the grant. Their intent is to close the grant out. However, they cannot close it out until they do a final audit. The audit involves, I believe, a site visit, and given the current environment, they can't give us a date of when that would take place. The other mortgage we have is for $50,000 approximately. That's actual cash that the city loaned John Hewitt. That was a loan. Now, the pursuit is asked me if the city would forgive these mortgages. Their feeling is that given the high amount of money owed, it's going to be very difficult for them to get another buyer to purchase this building and do something good with it. And they thought if the city forgave the mortgage, that would make it more, they could lower the price that they need to get, or minimize their loss, I should say, and make it more feasible for somebody to buy it and operate the restaurant, fix up the apartments, whatever they might do with it. So I said, that's a decision that the council has to make. Send me your request in writing and I'll forward it to them. And that's where it stands. David, you want to take it from there?
Sure. I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to read the pursuit proposal that was sent out. What they state about their position is accurate, and one of the fundamental points that they make is that if we force them to go through foreclosure in order to foreclose our interests, the state of foreclosures in New York State is pretty stopped right now. And so one of their problems would be that if they had to start a mortgage foreclosure proceeding, it would have to go through the entire process, and it could easily be a year and maybe 2 years before they had clear title to the property, so that they could in fact market and sell to somebody else. Whether if they didn't have our mortgages and they went out and marketed it, whether they would be successful or not is another whole issue. But that to me is the thing which is the most, I don't want to say attractive, but the most motivating thing is that it would save the building from sitting empty for a couple of years while they were waiting to get control of it to market it to somebody else. There'd be a possibility of leasing it, a receiver leasing it out, but it would be catch as catch can, and no one would be willing to put a significant investment in there if they had no idea whether in the end they would end up being able to buy it or even finance it long term. The real hit here is not so much the grant. The real hit is the $50,000 loan. I mean, that's real good all-American taxpayer dollars that went out the door when they were closing things out, and he needed it in order to put the finishing touches on the restaurant itself. So those are real dollars that the city will just simply flat out lose. The issue always is that, the $5,000 that they'll pay for us to us is a symbolic, it's a symbolic number. It's not, it's 1/10, literally 10 cents on the dollar. And so it would be a fig leaf at best. But on the other hand, if you do nothing and we sit and do nothing and say, screw you, see you in a couple of years, that building will sit empty for 2 years, and the likelihood of us getting anything out of it is very, very small. Both the corporation, Oneonta Bombers Inc., and both of the individuals who guaranteed it have filed for bankruptcy. So they're gonna lose their house and their savings and their and all their money. But we are such a long tail on a very short dog that if you have $400,000 lien versus $1 million, $1.1 million of debt, the likelihood of us seeing it is very, very, very small, as in zero. So, you have a bad option and a worse option. So, and I don't, frankly,
Dave,
I don't see. Yeah, sorry. I'll go
No, I
on.
just
You know
wanted
me.
to-
I'll go on for 20 minutes.
Yeah, no, 19 is up, so.
Okay.
If, just to clarify, they are in the first position, as their mortgage. So they would, is it correct that they would have to, if they foreclose and resell, they would have to get their full $100,000 before they give us a penny, before we get a penny?
They would have to get 1,180,000. Well, there's 1,084,000. So they would have to get, they would have to get 1,184,000. That's the total principal balance. And the mortgages are superior to Oneonta mortgages. So they have to be paid in full prior to us getting anything. So the chance of them getting, I should. Yeah, they say the principal balance due is the 1,184,000.
David, if you don't mind me asking, who paid for David Fontana of Armstrong Appraisals to perform that service? Did we did
no,
Pursue?
they did.
So is there any way, me just trying to understand the circumstances, is there any way that maybe this appraisal would come in lower? I look at that entire building. They're saying the valuation of that entire building is only $414,000.
Mm-hmm. That's presumably at a distressed sale, and a mortgage foreclosure sale, which again would obviously be less than if someone was marketing it as a going business, or if it was marketing, with 100% occupancy or something like that.
Right.
But I mean, we have a built-in assessor who we pay money to on a regular basis. You go to Maxwell and say, what do you think? And see if but the problem is that supposing he said, no, it's actually worth 700,000. Then they would still have to get paid off $1.1 million before they got to zero to begin getting our money back. Mm-hmm. So the amount, the property is so far underwater that even if the property was worth more, then it would not get us where we wanted to be.
All right. I apologize. My headphones went out. So if I heard some of it correctly, basically the 350, 400 that Gary just talked about, we had an indemnity clause on that. And so we're going to be covered for that amount. It's just the 50,000 in this transaction that the city's looking at, totally losing, because as you just said, pennies on the dollar. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah. The 350,000 was part of the grant. The 50,000 was a straight loan from the city of Oneonta, but it came in at the very tail end. So if we got $5,000, that would, again, it would be a symbolic amount. I mean, the only thing I was just say quickly is that whenever we have a public project, the reason that the grant money comes in is to bring it in at the tail, because lenders are unwilling to lend it on their own. So we're always tail end, Charlie, on any of these loans. Right. I mean, because again, we are the ones who are at risk. because we're the ones, we're not the, if they could get private funding, they wouldn't be coming to us at all.
Right. Right.
I know Jenny wanted to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt or not let her speak.
I just have a
Go ahead.
question. I just have a question. David, we have a very large water bill on this building. How will this affect that outstanding balance?
If it goes into bankruptcy, the moment it goes into bankruptcy, it's dischargeable. It does not become, it's a governmental lien, but it is not a superior lien that must be paid off. Anything that occurs after the filing of the bankruptcy becomes a priority, but water bills, anything that was incurred prior to the bankruptcy is subject to discharge in the bankruptcy court.
So David,
More
another
good
question that
news.
I have is I just can't wrap my head around the fact that these two individuals both own homes for a total valuation of $100,000. And yet somehow they were able to get $1,184,000 loan. Am I understanding this correctly?
Well, the equity, the 100,000 may be the equity in their homes, and they may have contributed money, which they took from home equity lines. Again, I don't know enough to answer that question, but they secured the building, they secured a franchise. Somebody loaned it to them. Right.
Yeah, Len, I can tell you, both Judy and before Judy, Meg worked closely with John Hewitt on this. He and I think it was his brother, basically scraped together every penny he could come up with to move forward with this project. So, I have no doubt that he has exhausted all of his funds.
I mean, frankly, that's why we ended up giving the last $50,000, because we were right near the end and he was totally and absolutely tapped out. And frankly, we didn't want to walk away at that point. Not even have them opening. I mean, there were code issues that needed to be addressed. There were inspections that needed to be done, and they came back to the city and said, "We need this, or we ain't gonna get ready. We're not going to be able to open." Yeah.
So I guess I turn to the three other committee members. What is your initial thoughts? I mean, just go ahead and unmic. Do you want to table this and do your own thinking, thoughts, processes, research, or do you want to move this to full council, or what's your initial gut reaction to this?
I'll jump in there. I think David put this well. It's probably not going to paraphrase you perfectly, but it's a bad situation or a worse situation. I mean, just doing quick math, this property would have to sell for 1.25, with not knowing what the interest fees would be and the attorney cost, but at least 1.25 for us to be able to get anything back. What's the likelihood of this building selling for 1.25? If we were to go that route, I just don't see it happening. So I unfortunately think it's one of those things where we're going to have to take the loss on this one. But it's disappointing.
Very, very disappointing that we're going to take it on the chin for $50,000. And hopefully HCR won't be too long before they come down and do the inspection so that we can get the $350,000-$400,000 back.
Well, technically 45, right? Because they're going to be giving us $5,000 as kind of it's crumbs, I guess.
David, do we actually anticipate seeing $5,000 from Pursuit?
Well, that actually, the answer is we could make sure it was structured that way. It says, if you look at the request, it says the city of Oneonta release its full mortgage position on the reference property in exchange for $5,000 to come from the proceeds of the ultimate sale of the property.
Correct.
So the answer is that there would have to be a sale. There would probably have to be an approval by the bankruptcy, by the trustee in bankruptcy, to give those funds to us, because again, it would be it'd be a preferred credit payment. I'm sure that they would, and I'm sure that can be done. All I'm saying is that it's not an absolute agreement, but I think it's a 95% agreement.
John or Scott? Scott, did you freeze up? John, go ahead.
I really have to rely on the judgment of others on this.
I mean, I don't know
Scott?
if you want to delay it here, because it's not like this is going to matter in a week or two, but eventually you're going to have to face it and make a decision one way or the other.
Correct.
Sorry.
No, appreciate that. Scott?
Yeah, my internet's going in and out, so I apologize. Just trying to think about this a little bit. I don't know. Is there any way they approached us? Is there any way we could
Counter.
say maybe counter a little bit and see if they'll give us a little bit more? I mean, will it hurt just to ask? I don't know. I mean, to take 45 on the chin is going to be off. It's.
Well, from their perspective, it's either taking 45 or taking 50, because if they say no, screw you, we'll never see a dime. And the property will sit empty for 2 years. On the other hand, it's going to sit empty for 2 years for them too. So I mean, we could certainly ask for 10. We could ask 15. Again, it's how much symbol is going to make you feel better,
Right. And has there been anybody that's approached the city willing to maybe take this over? You have an existing restaurant. I don't know. Did they actually renovate the second and third floors? I mean, is there a possibility to have a developer come in and Gary, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, various, I don't have any specific names, but, secondhand, third hand, you hear about people asking about it, but nobody specific. I will say, I don't know if anybody's been up on the upper floors. It needs a complete gut job. It's going to be very, returning those upper floors to residential housing is going to be very expensive.
Okay, guys, what do you want to do? Do you want to kind of leave it here for a week or two? As David said, there's no real rush, but we are going to have to make a decision on this. Or do you want to move it up?
I would lean towards what you're saying. Maybe just leave it. Let us maybe go out. We can research a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know what the great answer is. I just know it's not a good answer no matter what we do.
Correct. Go ahead, Jenny.
Len, can you see? Yeah, I didn't know if you could see Jenny.
Len, I don't know if this will help. I looked up the tax assessment on their bill. The city assessor has the building valued at $240,000. I didn't know if that information would assist you in your decision.
It actually did, because if we tabled this, I was going to call our tax assessor.
Yeah.
See what he was saying.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the taxes that are owed. As you pointed out, the water and sewer that's going to be owed.
Well, just so you know,
we're going to take it on the chin for more than 45,000.
Well, the taxes we've been made whole by the county, so any unpaid tax has been moved to the county. And just a little bit of history for you. The city we've really had good records as far as being able to collect on many of our economic loans that we have given to our downtown vendors. But this is not the first time that this has happened. There have been other loans. For example, I remember one that was $68,000 that we ended up having to forgive and didn't get 1 penny on. There was another one for $50,000, the same thing. So I don't want you to think this is the first time the city's been approached with this problem.
Mm-hmm. So we're basically trying to squeeze water or blood out of stones. Is that correct?
pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, what do you want to do? I think we're in our last item. It's between this and supper. What do you want to do?
I'm okay moving it up, but if the rest of the committee would like to sit on it for a bit longer and think about that, that's fine as well. One way or another, we're going to get kicked in the teeth. Just a matter of when.
Absolutely. Scott, what do you want to do?
I'm good either way, I guess. I don't know if we did sit on it, if one of us could play realtor and maybe try to find an investor, but even if we kick it up and we start doing it, if we can find an investor, eventually it'll be a win-win for the city. You know, if we do get somebody to take it over, I guess we can kind of hang our hat on that we got it and back on the tax rules, I guess. I don't know. I'll go whatever the majority of the committee wants.
Well, David, is there any way that we can participate in the structure of the sale since these folks have come to us? Is there any way that we can?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the maybe after the discussion, the proposal will make more sense. They said that if there's anything excess, anything excess, they will give us. They'll bump us up, and we'll be a creditor for anything in excess to pay off the 50,000. But again, so if the request it says once we're paid in full, any overage will be paid to the city up to the extent of its cash outlay of $50,000. If somebody came in and wanted to pay the 2.25 that Mark was referring to, then we might actually get 10 or 20,000 bucks out of it.
Right.
So in that sense, we are already participating, but right now we're absolutely tail end Charlie. We're absolutely at the end after everything.
So essentially, we could push them to foreclose and still get the same that we would be doing if we just did this now. Whatever's in excess of that 1 point, whatever, one something, will come to us. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
But guess how much of that is going to come to us? Exactly. So it looks like they're promising, and they are. I mean, it's a legitimate promise. But if that happens, you could knock me over with a feather. Put it that way. I'll never say never, but you know.
So essentially, if we stick this route, we have a chance of getting 5,000, 95% estimate.
We'll get 5,000 up front, and potentially an additional 45 off the back end.
Right.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. We will get 5,000 on the sale, and then potentially an additional 45,000 if there's excess.
Right. And unfortunately,
I'm not a real estate agent, but for what I know of the buildings that have been sold in downtown Oneonta, the chances of that building covering the interest, the fees, and the attorney costs, to Mark's point, I think you were a little low. It's probably going to be more like 1.4. I don't see them getting 1.4 for that building.
Agreed.
Dave, I got a slightly different question on this.
I can always rely on you, Scott.
Who would be responsible for kind of upkeep if something should start happening, like say a facade starts falling, or Bomber's Burrito signs hanging there with one screw swinging in the wind? And
that would be the court. The moment it goes into foreclosure, there'll be a receiver appointed, and just like there is on 125 Main Street right now, there's a receiver appointed, and they collect the rents and put it into court. So there'll be a responsible person appointed by the court whose job will be to maintain the property.
So on a safety aspect, it might be better if we kind of sign off on this, take the 5,000, because then we kind of get the process rolling. So
well, that's certainly that's their argument is that if if they don't have to foreclose in order to get to extinguish our interest, then they're in the driver's seat as far as getting, they would probably get what's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. They go to the Hewletts and say, just sign everything over to us. You're already in bankruptcy anyway. They might cut them a deal where they get to keep their house or something like that.
Right, keep their house.
Yeah, which a bankruptcy court often will allow anyway under a Chapter 11, but that's inside baseball stuff. It would simply give them an opportunity to move things along faster in order to potentially sell it to somebody else. Again, there are no guarantees here. We're just playing percentages. But it would certainly shorten the time because, again, right now, as I said before, foreclosures of any kind, whether commercial or otherwise, you can start them now, but they're totally the system is frozen.
So I feel comfortable in moving this up to full council, but I would want to change the language to David's point. Instead of waiting to the sale of the property, that we take the $5,000 now to sign off on our interest into the property.
We can certainly ask, but if they say no, we're not in a whole lot of negotiating position.
Good. Are you guys with that, or you remember? John?
I think we move it up to the full council and have 4 more people ponder this too. But it sounds as if the advice we're being given is to move forward with the deal. And there's no advantage to prolonging it or trying to finesse our way around the "I told you so" that'll come from the voters.
Right. Mark?
I'm okay moving it up.
Okay. Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that concludes the items or topics that we have on tonight's agenda. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and kind of have an open conversation with Jenny. To Councilmember Harrington's point, he brought up earlier in the meeting. I know that you're understaffed, and I'm just trying to work with you, but it seems like the information that's coming to this committee is getting delayed more and more and more. And in fact, I think we had talked a few months ago, and we asked if you could get it well before the meeting so that we could have an opportunity to do our own research. And you thought that you could adhere to that. Now, I'm not saying that you're doing this by any stretch of the means maliciously. I know that you're being overworked, and I'm just wondering, what is it that you need to kind of help us get ahead of this information? Because, I mean, turning this information over to us this afternoon, your narrative, is very important for us to have the background information to your agenda.
Well, Len, you're right. The office is understaffed. Katie and I and Greg are working on that to make changes. And you're right, I am working a lot. I average about probably 65 to 70 hours every week. We have different things that happen in different weeks with training of staff. Sometimes department heads are available for feedback, but sometimes they're not, and I have to wait. And it's just a matter of workload. It's a matter of timing. I will try to reshuffle things. And normally what I do is I work on committee items on the weekends when I'm by myself. And the past couple of weekends, I actually haven't been in here on a Saturday doing some personal things. So, and Mark Davies, I want to apologize. I've got to figure out what's going on with my email that I'm getting Mark Drenick twice instead of Mark Davies and Mark Drenick. So I will figure that out on my end.
Not a problem. Thanks, Jenny.
But I will, I'll do my best to try to get it out to you no later than Saturday morning. And that way you'll have the weekend to review it.
Right. Is the part-time clerk or part-time staff that we talked about tonight, is this an individual that's going to be able to help you out and kind of relieve your workload? Because, I don't think it's, I don't think we need to have you working 65, 75 hours a week. I'm looking for efficiencies. So what is it that we need to do to make your office a little bit more efficient?
Well, we're working on that. We're working on restructuring. It's just a matter, we've had a lot of challenges this year with the COVID, with Nicole leaving, with different staff member situations. It's just been challenging. And, we're working on trying to get things. I'm starting to see lights at different tunnels as far as different work tasks. And I was talking with Katie this week about it, and I'm thinking probably in about 3 months, we should hopefully be on a normal schedule. That's my goal.
Okay.
We just have to get there.
And is that based on the restructuring of those 3 departments, yours, codes and personnel? Or, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what is it that we need to do to make life a little bit easier on you.
Well, I think Katie has come up with really good, Katie and Greg both have come up with really good plans as far as redistribution of personnel and staffing and combining duties. And it's just it's a lot with transition and training and, what's the word I want? There's a lot to know. There's a lot of work that goes through this office, and something that could take somebody a couple hours to do, when it's being trained, it might take a couple of days to do. So it's just all of that compounding on top of each other with all the different challenges that we've had this year. So we'll get there. And, I have faith in it, and I have faith in all the changes that Greg and Katie have been proposing. And with the new part-timer coming on, that's going to take a lot of some of the routine, repetitive things. The payroll training has been going very well. Joe and David have been doing very well. We've had Zoom trainings. So I believe we're making the necessary changes going forward. It's just going to take time.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't want to sound like a martyr, and I apologize for that. Every department head puts in a lot of hours. I'm not the only one.
No, that's okay. Scott, I can't tell if you're frozen up or not.
Seems to be.
He's frozen to me. He seems. So, there you go. You're moving now. Okay, gotcha.
I was trying to do my best robot impersonation. Did it work? I was trying not to move.
Okay. Was there any, yeah, funny.
Sorry.
Was there any other committee member that wants to share this moment with our finance director?
One quick question. Is there anything that council members could do more of or less of in terms of optimizing time, your time, anyone's time?
Is that question directed at me, John?
It could be you, it could be Katie. I realize that sometimes council members can take time to get instruction or guidance or whatever, which they may very well be able to do themselves. But that's just a question about how we may be imposing on you.
I guess I'll answer because it sounds like Jenny maybe isn't going to. I think that we have a tremendous working relationship with the council. I think you're asking questions that are necessary. I think we understand and appreciate and respect your role in the process. So we want to be sure that you have the information you need in order to be able to, vote and make good decisions. So no, I think again, as Jenny had alluded, there's just a fair amount of internal restructuring that we have to work on, and we are working to get there. I think it is just going to take a little bit of time. I think when you look at, the finance office in general, as Jenny had mentioned, there has been a lot of transition that's happened, that started with Meg Hungerford leaving, a year and a half ago. Having Jenny as a new director, granted she's been with the city for 30 years, but she's never been a director before. Having a brand new deputy, having another longstanding employee leave. So I think it's just, there have been a lot of challenges, and we, Greg and Jenny and I, especially working now with a little bit with Joe Temming, the deputy a little bit more. I think that we're working through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with Katie. I don't think the council members are interfering or putting more workload as far as I'm concerned on the finance department. Our goal, as Katie said, is to give you the information you need to make your proper decisions.
Thank you. We're all good, or?
Yep.
Okay. Katie, is there a request for executive session?
I don't believe there was one unless anyone would like one.
I didn't know of one, so.
Okay. I don't have anything, and I don't believe I've received any requests for anything.
That would conclude the agenda. Does any committee member have something to add to the agenda? Any item that they wanted discussed? No? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move
probably
to
make
adjourn.
that.
Wow, all three at once.
First, second, and
Well,
third.
look at the time. Look how quick this one is. This is the quickest meeting yet.
Well, we're trying to streamline it. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.